Link in the Smash Bros. Series has been the very first swordsman introduced into the series, and has consistently remained the same pretty much throughout the whole series, with some minor tweaks here and there. He's a pretty slow swordsman compared to the rest, since he carries with him many other items and gear from his original series, such as a bow, a shield, a hookshot, bombs, and even a boomerang, which explains why he's so slow. However, even though his moveset and items have remained pretty much the same throughout the series, that doesn't mean that this Link is the same Link throughout the Smash series, because each Legend of Zelda game can take place either immediately after the previous one, or generations before/after each other, making talking about Links, Zeldas, and Ganondorfs a bit more complicated. However, despite this, I will try to explain the story of Adult Link in the Smash series, based on the information that we can gather throughout the series, as well as some of the games that came out during those times. Now, I will remind you guys that how I make these stories is that I use games and other media that are referenced right around the same time as the Smash series that I'm currently explaining at, meaning that any origin stories do not count until we get to that specific point in the Smash series. For example, since we all know that Skyward Sword is chronologically the first Zelda game, I will not reference it until we get to Smash 4 when it officially released. Also, since in Ultimate there are 3 different Links at this point, Adult, Young, and Toon, I'm only going to be focusing on the Adult Link at this moment, since that's the one who came from all the way from 64, and I also believe the other 2 have their own unique stories to tell, and deserve their own videos for that. Alright, with the intro out of the way, let's get started on the hidden story of Adult Link throughout the Smash series.
This game's winner is
But before we get too much into that, let's quickly talk about the Link being connected to the Mario universe, since he's interacting with Mario in Smash 64. Alright, so we see that the Legend of Zelda series and the Mario universe are connected pretty directly with each other, since in both Link to the Past, Ocarina, and even Awakening, we can see pictures of famous Mario characters in all 3, implying that the land of Hyrule and the Mushroom Kingdom are closer than we think. So Link being in the Smash Bros. Series interacting with Mario doesn't need some big portal jumps or warps for them to be in the same space, which is nice because some other characters down the line we might have to get more creative for. So now let's get into Link's games at this point. Already by Smash 64, Link has gone on 5 grand adventures. It seems like 4 of them all link back to the Link in Smash 64 in one way or another. The games that he went on this point are The Legend of Zelda 1 and 2, Link to the Past, Awakening, and Ocarina of Time. Now like I said, Zelda games don't happen one after another, so Link could have many different magical abilities, weapons, ages, and even hair color, which explains why so many of these Links are so vastly different from one another. So, to narrow things down, let's quickly look at the Link in Smash 64 to see which Link this one most likely takes after, which could help us explain the story. Alright, so the Link in Smash 64 dons the look of adult Link in Ocarina of Time, and that makes sense because in the beginning cutscene of Smash 64, we can see him playing an ocarina over a dark land, which immediately lets us know that this is taking place during the Ocarina of Time. In his trophy description, we can see that this Link is also connected back to Zelda 1, as well as the Link to the Past. However, it's also good to note that this Link also takes after the Link in Zelda 2, where both his up air and his down air attacks directly match up with the moves that Link was able to use during his mission of attaining the Triforce of Courage. Now with that out of the way, let's look at the stage that Link brings with him. The stage says it's Hyrule Castle. However, where Death Mountain is laid out in the background, it looks more like the Death Mountain's layout in The Link to the Past. But once again, that's also a problem since there's also a small pond or lake in front of Death Mountain, over to the left side of it, which hasn't appeared in another Zelda game's layout before. There's also the matter of fact that adult Link is shown to be using a boomerang, and even though the Ocarina of Time he does own one, he never uses it as an adult, since he got too old for it. With all these in consideration, let's quickly explore the Zelda lore to try to figure out any kind of reasoning for all these happenings in Smash 64. Okay, so halfway through Ocarina of Time, we open up the entrance to the Sacred Realm, allowing Ganondorf to be able to enter it and obtain the first piece of the Triforce, the Triforce of Power. We then get sealed away in the realm until we are old enough to deal with him. Wow, so things got real pretty fast. This is where I believe Link's story in Smash Bros. 64 begins. Yep, I'm saying that Link fighting in Smash 64 is also him in the Sacred Realm training and waiting until he gets strong enough / old enough to defeat Ganondorf. Let's look at the facts here. We see that Link descends to and from each battle in a blue ray of light, which we know is how Link travels to and from different time periods in Ocarina. We know that Link in Smash 64 is old enough to use his newly attained sword, but not too old to use the boomerang he found as a child. We know that the game stage of Hyrule Castle is not the same Hyrule Castle in any other Zelda game, meaning that this one has to be a newly created one. We know that Ganondorf went into the Sacred Realm first and obtained the Triforce of Power before Link can activate the Triforce. And finally, we also know that in the Sacred Realm, it takes the form after the person who touches the Triforce first, meaning that the whole realm of Smash 64 could be just a reflection of Ganondorf's wishes to be a ruler over them all. So, in conclusion, the whole universe of Smash Bros. 64, in the Legend of Zelda context, I will add, can be a reflection of Ganon's evil wishes to be the most powerful person, rule over everyone, and from what we see in A Link to the Past, countless battles and wars have erupted there, just like the many battles we experienced in Smash 64. That means that when Link gets trapped in the Sacred Realm, he gets to train there, as well as wait 7 years have passed, in order for Rauru to release him back into the world. But this could explain Link's ending cutscene, where after defeating Master Hand in Smash 64, he's just up on Hyrule Castle, looking like he's just waiting for someone. And I believe he's waiting to be released from this place, so he can go back to his original time. It could also explain how Link matured rapidly between time periods. Plus, I always thought that just being in an empty space of bright light for 17 years is just a special type of hell, and immediately getting older with just the mind of a child and an adult body could lead to some major problems down the line, which doesn't seem to happen to Link in Ocarina of Time, so this just seems like the best explanation. So let us quickly explain Link's story up until this point. First Zelda game happens, Link defeats Ganon, takes his Triforce of Power, and saves Zelda from his clutches. In Zelda 2, Ganon's minions are still roaming the lands trying to revive their dead leader by killing Link and stealing his blood, while he's trying to reawaken Zelda from a deep sleep by lifting Ganon's curse by finding the Triforce of Courage and using the now completed Triforce to save Zelda, possibly making him the Knight of Hyrule's beginning. Into the Link of the Past, the bloodline of the Lights of Hyrule continued on to raise Link as well as his uncle, even after generations has passed. When Zelda got kidnapped again, Link was tasked to go find the Master Sword, which is located in the Lost Woods, and use it to defeat Ganon, who has entered the Sacred Realm and turned it into a realm of darkness that spills over into Hyrule. However, Link defeats him, thus reuniting the Triforce once again to restore Hyrule to its former glory, as well as reviving all the important dead people that happen in this game. And finally, half of Ocarina of Time happens, which traps Link in the corrupted Sacred Realm of Ganondorf to train until he's ready to come out and face him. Yep, oh boy, the story's getting interesting from here, boys. And we just got started. Let's continue on to Melee, and how Link developed in that game, as well as reveal his true goals. Link in Melee doesn't have that many unique changes happen to him, but the other people who are with him this time tell a whole new story revolving Link and the hero of time. Link this time around not only wields a new bow, but also has the Triforce of Courage alongside both Sheik and Ganondorf. What's also interesting is that he also meets the younger version of himself, but we'll get more into that when we get into young Link's time to tell his side of the story. Now, even though there have been more Legend of Zelda games that happened, the story of adult Link in Smash doesn't seem to go past Ocarina of Time, which makes sense given the other characters' design. The new stage that is brought with them is the Temple stage, which is just more of a reference to The Legend of Zelda 2 by both the music choice as well as the layout of it. However, that isn't the only new Legend of Zelda stage introduced in here. There is also the Legend of Zelda themed dungeon in Melee's Adventure Mode that appears. And what's the reward / end goal of that trial? Something that deeply resembles the Triforce is found at the end of it. We also get to face Sheik / Zelda after completing the trial, which definitely feels like a final test of sorts. Link also faces many other trials in Melee, such as a event mode battle against Shadow Link, as well as tracking down Ganondorf in said event mode. So what does all this tell us about the story? Well, I think it's actually kind of simple this time. After a wait of the 7 years of training in 64, Link was old enough as well as ready enough to finally defeat Ganondorf. This is where Link meets Sheik for the first time, because note that in the Smash roster, Sheik is before Zelda in the roster, meaning that Zelda was still in hiding even in the Smash universe at this point. This is where the rest of the events of Ocarina of Time take place, where Link travels back and forth through time, rescuing sages, attaining new equipment, as well as learning more melodies from Sheik / Zelda, which is shown in Melee's introduction. However, at the end of Ocarina of Time, it is shown to us that Ganondorf is not dead, he just gets sealed away in the Sacred Realm. However, as I was telling you back in Smash 64, and what's in reference to Link to the Past, even though Ganondorf was sealed away, trapped in the Sacred Realm, he still plots and plans to escape one day. If the Sacred Realm in turn is an image of Smash Brothers, then that means Link and Zelda has trapped them in the world of Smash Brothers. And trap is a pretty good word to describe him, because the only way to find him is heading towards the events mode square. This is where I believe that both Link and Zelda at this point realize the danger the world of Smash Brothers is in, so they both set out to go find Ganondorf in this new place. We know that it's Zelda at this point since her character picture on the roster and it's not Sheik. However, upon arrival, they ended up in a dungeon completely different from the last time Link was here. This dungeon isn't that big, but it is full of familiar creatures and enemies that Ganondorf summoned onto the land of Hyrule many times over, such as the Redeads and the Octoroks. After going through the dungeon, they discover two things. One, some fake Master Swords that upon touching them, traps Link into combat with another version of himself, possibly himself from another time period, trying to use the Master Sword to travel to in another time period, but got interrupted since the arena they fight in is kind of a corrupted blue shining light similar to the initial one that shines when first pulled. And two, they discover the pedestal of the Master Sword with the emblem of the Triforce floating above it. Now we know this can't be the real Triforce since Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf are all shown to be already having a piece of it in their hands, but what I do believe this could be is another warp point to bring them to a place to test Link. Now, after a long journey of trials of fighting, Link ends up at Final Destination against Bowser, the King of the Koopas. After a swift victory, something unexpected happens though. Bowser rose up again, but this time, he gets struck by a familiar looking lightning bolt that then transforms him into a great beast, similar to how when Ganondorf gets defeated, he gets transformed into Ganon. After a grueling fight, Link knew that his journey was not yet over. He knew that this transformation was too much of a coincidence to happen because of what happened to Ganondorf at the end of Ocarina of Time's fight, so he ran off to set out to find the source of that transformation, but must face another trial before finding his answer. After some light bow training with Kirby, he returns back to the temple only to find a new opponent to fight himself. Yep, Shadow Link has popped up again, but this time, he not only knew Link's fighting moves, but he also copied all of his items, making this one way more powerful than the last time. After a close battle, the cause of all these events finally shows himself. Yep, right after Link defeats Dark Link, Ganondorf shows up himself ready to finally defeat Link, and after his exhausting battle with Dark Link, Link was at a disadvantage since he knew Ganondorf can revive himself one time during battle. However, Link was not alone anymore. Zelda shows up to lend a hand, and together they were able to defeat Ganondorf and seal him away once again. This ends the story of Link in Melee, since from this point on, Link has finally defeated Ganondorf and spent the rest of his time sparring with his new swordsman buddy rival, Marth. Now let's quickly take a look at Link during Brawl and the Subspace Emissary.
The winner is Link.
Now, Link in Brawl has more changes, but also has many. Link in Brawl may have no move changes, but has many design changes. Link now dons his look to the Lincoln Twilight Princess, which makes sense since that was the latest console Zelda title release. But there have been other Links that have shown up faces, such as the Links from the Four Swords games, Wind Waker, Minish Camp, and even Soul Calibur 2. What's also interesting is that apart from the Soul Calibur, all these Links are original that have outlived the previous Link in Ocarina of Time, meaning we have brand new stories to tell. However, despite this, the Link in Brawl / Subspace doesn't seem to match any of them. Even though this Dawn looks a lot like the hero of Twilight, the Link seems to have a fairy companion, which a Link hasn't had since Ocarina, as well as finding a massive sword in a lone forest, which hasn't happened since the Link to the Past. Not only that, but there is something really important design-wise that is sprinkled in Brawl to help us piece this story together. First, it seems that Ganondorf this time around is also from Twilight, but is missing a very important detail: the Scar of Light from his execution. Second, in Twilight there are mentions of a hero that happened in the past that befriended the Gorons. And lastly, it seems the Link hasn't awakened as the hero before Subspace, since he doesn't show up till much later in the campaign, which could explain why Kirby was Zelda's champion in the friendly match in the beginning, since Link has not awakened as the hero yet. Now, with all this evidence, let's compile a story. After Ocarina of Time, the Triforce has been split up and only the blood relatives of Link, Ganon, and Zelda inherit them. Hyrule, now in an age of peace and prosperity, tries to expand their land and territory to new places. One of the new places created from this was a farming community known as Ordon, where Link's ancestors had settled into another tree there. Years went by, a minimum 100 years. Link is now no longer bounded to the kingdom of Hyrule, but instead to just a small village and their villagers, even though the Triforce of Courage still shines in his hand. However, as we all know, the peace cannot last. Once again, the hero is called onto action when another guardian fairy, most likely the last of its kind, shows up to Link telling him that a big ship is coming and spreading darkness all over the land. Link, knowing he must protect his village, sets out with the one family heirloom he has, a bow and arrows. After scouring the lands and obtaining new items and weapons, the fairy tells him that in order to put an end to all this evil, he needs a sword that seals the darkness, the Master Sword. Link, following the fairy, finds his way to the lost woods that resemble the woods to the Link in the Past. With his Triforce glowing in hand, he was able to pull the Master Sword and was ready to confront the darkness. This is where Link's story in Smash Bros. Brawl begins, since it seems that Link at this point didn't have any sword till the Master Sword at this point, and also since he didn't start with Zelda, we have to assume that his ancestor ties with the royal family have been cut at this point. As he walks out of the forest, Link is suddenly ambushed by the big ship and spreads its darkness all around the land, transforming the creatures of the forge into abhorrent creatures. Link, with his new sword in hand, is ready to fight the darkness, and even gets joined up by a new ally, Yoshi. After escaping the ambush, both Link and Yoshi give pursuit to the ship, leading them towards a lake. However, on their travels, Link spots a suspicious person taking aim at two people, and knowing the danger they were in, decides to intervene, defeating the person but also getting the wrath of the two who seem to know the person. Then after defeating those two, a strange man comes by, and Link spots the Princess of Hyrule in the back. After the two get resurrected by the new ally, all 5 of them decide to give chase after the strange man. This unfortunately is where Link's importance in subspace comes to an end, since at this point on, it just seems exploring places to realize they were too late, and then reuniting with everybody for a big showcase. However, one more important thing that does happen near the end is that both Link and the Princess of Hyrule, Zelda, both agreed to let loose the King of Darkness to try to stop Taboo, since they knew that they probably needed the Triforce in order to stop him. However, this is where tragedy fucks on their downfall, because even though they didn't need the Triforce at the ending of Subspace, they did release Ganon back into the world. And immediately after Subspace, Ganondorf confronts both Link and Zelda again to try to steal their Triforce pieces. However, he gets stopped really quickly thanks to their new ally that they joined up with in Subspace, Pit, the general of Palutena's army. After defeating Ganondorf, Link and Zelda decide to bring Ganondorf to justice, and brings him back to his homeland to be executed by their highest authority, the 7 Sages. Link, now ready to explore more lands other than Hyrule, gets an intriguing offer from his new buddy, Pit, where he takes him will blow his mind. Thus ends the story of Link and Brawl. I know there's a lot of story elements that I didn't get into, since the story of Link isn't just about him, but also with Zelda and Ganondorf as well. But those guys could get their own video soon, and I could dive deeper on those guys' roles and lore when I get to them. However, if you think the story of Brawl was interesting, wait till we see Smash 4. Alrighty, Link in Smash 4 has a very interesting case, since the only game that came out for Adult Link was Skyward Sword, and this game, both in the lore, commercials, and even the books that came out, all state that this Legend of Zelda was the very first one in the timeline, so that this Link cannot be the same Link in Smash 64. This is further supported by the fact that Link uses all the same items in Twilight Princess, plus Zelda and Ganon still use their old Twilight Princess designs, also backs this up. However, Ganon does have an important update in this game. He now dons the Scar of Light, that only appears on Ganon after his execution in Twilight Princess. Now, with Link's background now settled, let's take a look at the trailers for Smash 4 to see what Link was doing before the game. It seems that Link returns back to Hyrule triumphantly, implying an important journey has happened. He was in the fray when Mega Man first appeared. He was doing yoga with Mario and Kirby during Wii Fit's trainer. He was there when Charizard went on a rampage with his Gale Boomerang in hand, I would add. He was sparring one-on-one with Pit at Palutena's temple, where the strength impresses the Goddess of Light herself. He was there to try to ambush Shulk for some reason. He was there when Bowser Jr. first appeared with his Koopalings. And finally, he was also there to track down Duck Hunt. As we can see, Link has always been an important character during Smash 4. He was always there to try to improve his skills. He is always ready to spar with anybody, anywhere, ready to lend a helping hand to anyone, and always there for his friends. However, as we always know, the main goal for Link during this series has been trying to put a stop to Ganondorf. However, Ganondorf is currently sealed away, but it seems someone is trying to revive him once again. To prepare for this, Link has attained more weapons and found new ways to tap into the hidden magical powers of old, thanks to the help of the Goddess of Light herself, Palutena. Since Palutena was one of the first characters to canonically have more special moves at base release, as well as Link interacting with her directly in the trailers, it seems highly likely that Link was able to attain his electric great spin. However, that's not all Link was able to attain. He started to become a bit more of a scavenger, now having bigger and smaller bombs that can meteor you, having high speed and heavier arrows, and even having his fairy friend leave his boomerang at times and enter his sword to give his recovery more distance at the cost of no damage. However, even with all these new items and abilities at his hand, he still felt a bit underprepared, so with the guidance of Pit and Palutena, they led him to a hidden city in the sky called Skyloft. They say this is where the first hero of the tunic has appeared, and should explore to see what treasures are lost inside. The time spent in Skyloft was fruitful since Link was able to find ancient items of the past, such as the wind bellows, as well as the mechanical beetle. With these new items at hand, Link is finally ready to go face that being that is trying to resurrect Ganon, Master Hand, since you unlock Ganondorf by beating Classic Mode with either Link or Zelda at 5 difficulty. However, in a surprise event, Master Hand not only had the aid of Crazy Hand, but once defeated, Crazy Hand bursts into a creature of pure darkness. After it transforms into different shapes, it turns into a labyrinth, which Link was easily able to navigate thanks to all the dungeons he's gone through. At the end of the trial lies the heart of the beast, and after a few slashes, gets away in a brilliant ray of darkness. That is when Link made a crucial mistake after the light clears. He has to go face off against Ganondorf once again, meaning that Master Core was sealing away Ganondorf, and all the dark shapes and sizes were just the secretion of Ganon's dark powers. After Ganon escapes his prison, he immediately flees and tries to go to a place to try to recover more of his strength, as well as some more followers. However, Link was too quick for Ganon, resulting in him to never make it there, and with the help of Zelda, Pit, and even Palutena, Ganondorf was chased off again, most likely for good this time. Thus ends the story of Link in Smash 4. And the storyline of this Link in particular, since in Ultimate we have a whole new Link to explore, as well as many timelines colliding into one another.
Link wins!
Link in Ultimate has gone through many visual changes as well as some item changes as well, which does make sense since the game he's based off is the most different Zelda game in the whole bunch. Link now has remote bombs as well as no longer having a claw shot / hook shot for a grab. Also, a fairy is no longer seen with him. This means that the story this Link has to tell is way different from the ones in the past Smash games. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the games that happened before Ultimate to get a sense of the Link lore that happened. We see a spin-off game called Hyrule Warriors that gives us the most interesting crossover of Zelda timelines, as well as some interesting explanations on some loose threads as well, such as an explanation of the multiple timelines colliding with each other, as well as the origins of Shadow Link and their true intentions. We also get a brand new Zelda game called Breath of the Wild that has the most Easter eggs and interesting mechanics of any other Zelda game. And that's about it in terms of games for Adult Link. And even though there's only really 2 of them, the stories between them is pretty interesting. Alright, so right off the bat, let's quickly look at Link in Smash Ultimate so we can get a sense of what this Link has to go off of. So right off the bat, before you even get to see his face, we can see that this Link has gone through the land of Hyrule during Breath of the Wild, since it's the only Link in the entry series to have that kind of hairstyle. We also see that later on that this Link not only has the Champion's Tunic, but also the Tunic of the Wild, meaning that this Link has gone through every shrine in Hyrule. However, we also see that in the stage he brings with him a cameo shot of an old man with a hand glider. Now this is important because as we know from the game, that this old man isn't actually a real old man. He's just a dead spirit of a man. He's just been there waiting for Link to reawaken. Now, this can only mean that the Link in Ultimate hasn't gone through the story of Breath of the Wild yet. Now you may be thinking, well, what about the Sheikah Slate that Link has since he's been given that item very early in the game? To that I say, true, but it also states that Link finds it very familiar when he first picks it up, meaning he must have used it in the past. So him having the Sheikah Slate in Smash Brothers doesn't really condescend the story of Breath of the Wild. We also get to see the spirits of other Breath of the Wild characters in their regular forms before they eventually die in their game. So, from every angle, we can say for sure that the events of Breath of the Wild have not happened yet. This Link is just in the fray because he saw the smash signal get lit up and wanted to go see the cause of it. When he gets there, it was because it was a signal to call in the strongest fighters they can, since a new threat was coming that endangered the whole universe, Galeem. Link, ready to help save the Hyrule as well as the universe, was on the front lines when Galeem attacked. However, even with his Hylian shield, he wasn't able to fight back against Galeem's attack. This is where Link's story in Ultimate begins. He hasn't had much use in the CGI trailers from the game's initial release, but does make some interesting appearances in the DLC trailers. So after getting rescued in the World of Light, Link was ready to help put a stop to Galeem, and after exploring this new land, they eventually took down all the bosses who protect Galeem's shields, as well as meet another version of himself, but in a weird art style. After defeating Galeem, the true threat Darkon shows up, and he opens up the path to the Dark Realm. Now this is where Link's story takes an unexpected turn, cause Link in the Dark Realm gets quickly overwhelmed by the dark versions of Marth and Meta Knight. Link, fighting with everything he's got, was about to perish when a mysterious man jumps in to save him from his doppelgangers. And from then on, that man became Link's hero. Link, badly wounded, was forced to retreat out of the Dark World and must go on a different quest in trying to find more recruits to help them in their cause of saving the universe. Link, bitter at first, agrees and meets up with ZSS as well as Dark Pit to test the might of a new person who has shown up seemingly out of nowhere, Pyra Mythra. Link, thinking too little of this character, was about to pin down this one and was about to deliver the final blow, when all of a sudden she starts glowing and changes from a short redhead to a long blonde woman, to the point where she cuts up Link's bonds and sets her back with him in mere moments. After the recruitment of Pyra Mythra, Link was finally able to meet back with the others and finally put an end to both Darkon and Galeem, saving their universe. However, even though the universe has been saved, Link still felt a bit of remorse being forced to retreat and not help everybody in the Dark World. Link, knowing he needs to get stronger, continued to fight on after a certain someone showed up and re-sparked the fire in everyone's hearts to continue fighting. Thus ends the story of Link in Ultimate. Man, what a trip. This is no doubt one of the more complex stories I've told, but man am I happy with the results. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. But before then, be sure to check out some of my other lore videos, which no doubt will definitely entertain you, as well as intrigue you. And since you made it to the end, why not leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm having a lot of fun with these lore videos and creating these videos. And I hope to see you on the next one.